Cassiopeian Souls. If you are a Cassiopeian soul, relationships have never been simple emotions for you. They are systems, structures of meaning, responsibility, logic, and consequence. You do not enter connection lightly. You observe first. You analyze patterns. You measure consistency before trust. From early on, you felt the need to understand people rather than dissolve into them. You noticed contradictions. You tracked behavior over time. You paid attention to what others ignored. Emotions alone were never enough. You needed coherence. Your lived experience is one of internal precision. You sense when something does not add up, even if it looks fine on the surface. You notice misalignment between words and actions. You remember details others forget. And because of this, you often feel like the only adult in the room. People may describe you as rational, reserved, or emotionally contained, but inside, your relational world is intense. You care deeply. You invest seriously. You simply refuse to build intimacy on illusion. You may have struggled to relate to people who move purely through feeling. Emotional chaos feels unsafe to you. Unclear dynamics feel threatening. You need relationships to make sense, not just feel good in the moment. And when they do not, your system begins to distance itself automatically. Many Cassiopeian souls learned early that stability comes from understanding, that clarity protects, that logic creates safety where emotion alone can overwhelm. So you developed strong inner structure. You learned to hold yourself together when others fell apart. At times, this has created loneliness, not because you lack connection, but because few people meet you at your depth of awareness. You may feel surrounded by others and still feel separate, as if you are watching life from a slightly higher vantage point, seeing patterns unfold before anyone else notices them. You may have questioned why intimacy feels conditional, why trust requires so much time, why you cannot simply surrender without knowing where you are standing. This is not emotional coldness. It is discernment. You are not here to merge blindly. You are here to relate consciously, to build connection that can endure pressure, contradiction, and time. If this resonates, it is not coincidence. It is recognition. Your mind learned the language of relationships before your heart was ever asked to risk itself. This video was created within the Starseed Soul Project, a system designed to bring clarity to interrelational architectures that are often misunderstood as emotional distance or control. It is not about labeling personalities. It is about recognizing how different souls create safety, meaning, and connection. For Cassiopeian souls, this recognition is essential because depth is often hidden behind logic. The core relationship pain for this soul is conditional trust. You do not give your heart easily. You open through consistency, reliability, and proof over time. You need to understand the system of the relationship before surrendering inside it. And while this protects you, it also creates distance. You often feel responsible for maintaining coherence in relationships. You notice flaws early. You see where dynamics may break down in the future, and instead of addressing them openly, you may begin to withdraw emotionally, preparing for an outcome before it arrives. Not because you do not care, but because unpredictability feels unsafe. This creates a repeating relational destiny. You attract partners who rely on your clarity, structure, and stability. People who feel grounded by your presence, but may resist the level of awareness you bring. They want your reliability without your scrutiny, your steadiness without your questions. Over time, you may feel that you are carrying the relationship intellectually, thinking ahead, anticipating problems, adjusting expectations quietly. You may stay emotionally reserved, waiting for proof that the connection can hold under pressure, and when that proof does not arrive, detachment feels inevitable. This pattern can lead to relationships that look stable on the surface but lack emotional reciprocity. You give structure. You offer logic. You provide consistency, but you may not feel met in vulnerability or emotional depth. Trust becomes something you manage rather than experience. Many Cassiopeian souls leave relationships not because love disappears, but because coherence does. When logic can no longer justify emotional risk, withdrawal feels like the only safe response. Not dramatic endings. Quiet disengagement. This is not emotional avoidance. It is a relational loop formed around the belief that understanding must come before safety, and safety must come before love. This pattern is not random. In the Starseed soul system, relationships move through different frequencies, and not all of them are designed to be intellectually managed. Some bonds require emotional risk before full understanding is possible. For Cassiopeian souls, this is where tension begins. You were not designed to solve relationships as problems. You were designed to participate in them as living systems. Understanding this does not mean abandoning logic. It means recognizing when logic is protecting you and when it is limiting intimacy. It means seeing that not everything meaningful can be predicted in advance. The same dynamic often appears in money and material life. Cassiopeian souls are capable of building stability, structure, and long-term plans. You think ahead. You calculate risk. You prefer reliable systems over spontaneous opportunities. And yet, material progress can feel slower than it should. You may hesitate before committing resources. You may delay decisions until every variable is clear. You may miss opportunities because they do not yet make full sense. Not because you lack ambition, but because uncertainty feels irresponsible. You want solid ground before you move. Money can become tightly linked to control, to predictability, to safety. You may struggle to receive when conditions are unclear or when value feels subjective rather than measurable. This can create a sense of stagnation, where potential exists but remains unrealized. This leads to an inner conflict around value and embodiment. You know your competence. You know your intelligence. But you may struggle to trust your intuition when it cannot be logically justified. You may undervalue emotional labor, relational insight, or subtle leadership because it feels difficult to quantify. Part of you wants certainty before commitment. Another part senses that life does not wait for perfect understanding, so you remain in between, capable, prepared, yet hesitant to fully step forward. Until this conflict is resolved, relationships and money will mirror the same lesson. Where does logic create safety, and where does it create distance? Where does structure support growth, and where does it quietly stall it? This is not a failure of intelligence. It is an invitation to let understanding and experience begin to cooperate. The shadow point of the Cassiopeian soul is not coldness. It is the fear of emotional exposure without guarantees. Deep inside, there is an avoided truth that vulnerability feels dangerous when it cannot be logically secured. That opening your heart without full clarity might lead to loss of control. That feeling before understanding could destabilize everything you have built. Because of this, you may keep emotional distance even in close relationships. You may analyze instead of feel. You may wait for certainty before allowing yourself to soften. Not because you lack depth, but because your system learned that safety comes from comprehension, not surrender. This shadow often hides behind competence, behind reliability, behind being the one who knows what to do, but underneath it lives a quiet tension, a sense of being present yet not fully involved, of participating in life from a controlled distance rather than from inside experience. The turning point for this soul comes when you realize that maturity is not total predictability. It is discernment combined with courage, the ability to enter experience without needing to map every outcome in advance, to allow feeling to inform understanding rather than wait for it, to accept that some truths only reveal themselves through participation. As this shift begins, something subtle changes. You allow yourself to stay emotionally present even when things are unclear. You stop withdrawing at the first sign of uncertainty. You begin to trust your inner sense, not just your reasoning. And you discover that safety can exist alongside ambiguity. in its integrated expression. The Cassiopeian soul becomes a master of conscious structure. You no longer use logic to shield yourself from life. You use it to support depth. Your clarity becomes inviting rather than distancing. Your intelligence becomes a bridge instead of a barrier. Relationships transform from systems you manage into spaces you inhabit. You no longer carry the connection alone. You allow yourself to be met emotionally, not just respected intellectually. Trust becomes lived rather than calculated. This is your higher expression. Logic in service of connection. Structure that allows feeling to move safely. Presence without losing coherence. When relationship, logic, matter, and energy align, you stop watching life from the outside and begin living inside it, with awareness intact and your heart fully engaged. If this resonates, you can explore your Starseed soul origin through the portal 11.11. The portal offers recognition without pressure, without forcing conclusions, and without demanding emotional exposure before you are ready. It is designed to bring clarity first, not overwhelm. For Cassiopeian souls, clarity is the doorway to safety. For those who feel ready to go deeper, there are activation transmissions created for each origin. These are not emotional drills or exercises. They are structured, guided experiences that allow feeling to emerge gradually. Within a stable inner framework, they support openness without chaos, depth without loss of control, and embodiment without threat. Stay here for a moment. You do not need to analyze this space. You do not need to resolve anything. You are allowed to experience presence without explanation. Nothing needs to be proven right now. You have spent much of your life building internal order, creating systems of meaning, holding yourself together through understanding when others relied on impulse or emotion. And while this gave you strength, it also kept parts of you protected behind structure. You were never meant to live behind glass. You were meant to inhabit your clarity, not hide within it. Your logic was not given to replace feeling, but to make feeling safe enough to exist. When you allow yourself to be fully present, something shifts. Relationships stop feeling like systems to manage. Money stops feeling like a variable to control. Energy stops being suppressed and begins to flow naturally. Life becomes something you participate in, not oversee. This is the transmission of the Cassiopeian soul. Clear mind, open presence, structure that supports life rather than distances from it. You are not here to remain untouched. You are here to engage consciously, to bring order into connection and connection into order. Your origin has always known this balance. It carries the memory of intelligence that does not fear feeling, and your destiny is not to stand apart and observe, but to live fully present, aware, grounded, and open, within the life you so carefully understand.